I'm sure you've noticed America's place in the world is kind of upside down right now. Donald Trump berated Ukraine's president in the Oval Office on Friday. Former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev tweeted that he loved seeing, quote, the insolent pig finally get a proper slapdown in the Oval Office. And by the way, he was referring to President Zelensky, not Donald Trump. Putin's longtime spokesperson, Dmitry Peskov, came out and said publicly that U.S. foreign policy now, quote, largely coincides with our vision, as in the Kremlin's vision. And I don't know that I've ever said this before, but Dmitry Peskov is absolutely right. I mean, just today, NBC News confirmed that the White House is pausing all military aid to Ukraine. And Reuters reported today that the Trump administration is also drawing up a plan to potentially give Russia sanctions relief. So, yeah, Donald Trump really is going all in on helping Russia, while simultaneously inflicting as much pain as he can on our closest allies. Today, Trump confirmed that 25% tariffs on goods from Mexico and Canada will go into effect at midnight tonight, just a couple hours from now. And as you know, that won't just hurt them, it will hurt you, the American consumer. And that fear was reflected in the market today, with the Dow closing down nearly 650 points, thanks in part to this.
On the tariffs, is there any room left for Canada and Mexico to make a deal before midnight? And should we expect those Chinese tariffs, the extra 10%, to take effect tomorrow?
No room left for Mexico or for Canada. No, the tariffs, they're all set. They go into effect tomorrow.
Joining me now is Chrystia Freeland. She served as Canada's finance minister and deputy prime minister under Justin Trudeau. She's now a candidate for prime minister herself. It is great to see you. You could be, which is pretty incredible to say out loud, you could be the prime minister this time next week. Tariffs, of course, are going to be a major issue. You've suggested Canada should fight back in a very targeted way. You've been very forward about that. You've pushed to target Wisconsin dairy farmers, Michigan manufacturers, Florida oranges, to name a few, as a way of really specifically hitting states that are politically key to Donald Trump. You know what gets to his heart there. How far, for people who are watching, are you ready to go on tariffs? They're going to be put into place in a couple of hours. How far are you ready to go? And what other targets would you want to aim for?
Well, it is great to be with you, Jen, and I am running to be the next leader of the Liberal Party and the next Prime Minister of Canada, because right now we Canadians have to stand up and fight for our country. If the tariffs are imposed, as Prime Minister, I will fight back with dollar-for-dollar retaliatory tariffs, and our retaliation is going to be surgically targeted to create the maximum pressure on the White House to stop what the Wall Street Journal has described quite rightly as the dumbest trade war in history. An example of a measure that I will put in place as Prime Minister is 100% tariffs on Teslas. I think that should get some attention in the White House. And, Jen, I think people, Americans, I don't think you think about Canada all that much. But I think when you do think about Canada, you might think, oh, they're smaller than us. Is this really something I should be worried about? Well, the stock market is worried. Shares have gone down, and this has been a terrible year for U.S. stocks already because of these tariff threats. And the reality is, you guys need us. We are your largest market by far. The U.S. sells more to Canada than to China, Japan, the UK, and France combined. So we do have leverage. And as Prime Minister, I will use it. And not because I want to. I mean, the irony about this, the stupidity about this is right now we have a balanced and mutually beneficial relationship. There is a win-win here. There is an exit ramp. But Americans need to know that if you hit Canada, we will hit back, and we will be sure that our retaliation hurts.
I think Americans are very concerned right now about these tariffs that are about to go into place and could impact their bottom line and their cost of goods. Let me ask you this. You just mentioned Elon Musk. I think everybody in this country is learning a lot about his influence, which is unwieldy and over the top, just to say a few words. You mentioned 100% tariffs on Teslas to hit Elon Musk. He owns a number of other companies. Obviously, there's Starlink. Would you ever consider canceling Canada's contracts with Starlink, for example?
Absolutely. And Canadian premiers have already said that they would do that. I think you made a really important point a minute ago, Jen, which is right now, this is maybe abstract for Americans. But if these tariffs are put in place, it is going to hurt Americans. Anyone who has a 401k is going to be hit because the stock market is already hurting. Anyone who needs to fill their car up with gas is going to be hit. You are going to be putting tariffs, a tax on the oil and gas and electricity that we sell you. Totally absurd. Your grocery prices are going to go up because you know what you need to grow food in the United States? You need fertilizer. And 80% of it comes from Canada, and you're going to put a 25% tax on it? I mean, the Wall Street Journal is right. This is dumb. This is utterly self-mutilating, and our retaliation is going to make it worse because we can't stand for these attacks on our economy. So really what I'm saying to you and to your viewers, Jen, is call the White House now. Say to the president, say to your congressmen, say to your senators, say to your governors, this is self-mutilation. This just doesn't make sense. There is no need to do this. But if you follow this path, it's going to hurt America.
It's not every day when you hear a candidate to be the leader of a neighboring country call for people to call the White House and their members of Congress. So that speaks to the significance of the moment. I wanted to turn to Ukraine because I think when I first met you, you were a very well-respected journalist. You spent a lot of time in Ukraine. You covered Russia. This is obviously something I think we're all trying to figure out what's happening and why right now. There are a lot of theories as to why Trump is siding with Putin and badgering Zelensky, to put it one way. Why do you think he is?
Well, I would like to start, Jen, by just being very clear about what we are seeing. And I think it's important to say the scenes that we saw in the Oval Office on Friday were shameful. They were appalling. We saw a U.S. president parroting Kremlin talking points. And I want to be very clear for the record that Putin is a dictator. His invasion of Ukraine is criminal and illegal. Zelensky is the democratically elected president of Ukraine, and Ukrainians are bravely fighting for their democracy and their sovereignty. And by the way, they're doing it alone. We should be grateful to them for fighting for democracy and the rules-based international order, and Canadians certainly are.